I'll click on the welcome, everyone. Here we are. This is the Semrush Influencer Marketing webinar. And I'm super excited to have this guest. We have Neal Schaffer with us. Neal, please say hello to your loving fans.
Greetings, Earthlings. Neal Schaffer here from my home office in Irvine, beautiful Orange County, California. Excited to be here. Semrush, awesome tool. I'm a user, and I hope you are too as well. And if there's one takeaway you get from this webinar outside of influencer marketing is if you're not using Semrush, you should be. So that's my introduction.
I can't do my job without it, but that's not why we're here. This is the format. So we are going to have enough time to go deep into the mind and insight from Neal, but we always start with a little webinar or a little presentation. And so I'm going to turn on some screen sharing and show you some insights right now. Just a basic structure and high-level approach to this whole idea of influencer marketing, and especially as it relates to search. Leads. You want to lead. I want to lead. It's a goal for a huge number of marketing campaigns. And so to generate a lead, what do you need? Two things. You need visitors, and you need to convert them. Traffic times the conversion rate is leads, after all. So to get traffic, what are we talking about, right? There's three main sources of traffic and content, at least. There's three main sources. There's search, there's social, there's email. But which source of traffic is the most likely to convert? It's search, because those are visitors with intent. Those are visitors that want something. Those are visitors whose fingers are on a keyboard and they're telling the internet that they want something back, and you've got a chance to solve for their information need or to solve for that commercial need. So if we're talking about search, we're talking about rankings, of course. And why do things rank? There's two main factors. The site is authoritative and credible enough to be considered by Google from links. And there is content that is rank worthy, that's relevant, that indicates its relevance. That's keyword usage. We're talking about off-site and on-page SEO. So now I'm going to ask one of the most important questions in all of digital marketing. Why do people link to things? The answer is actually quite simple. It's because that content is visible to someone who creates content themselves. In other words, there's a relationship between that brand and that content creator, a relationship with that influencer, and there's something worth linking to. Link-worthy content plus relationships with content creators. So you can see very obviously, even if you have a totally search-focused lead gen program, how influencer marketing can make a difference, how important it is to have relationships with people who create content, how human SEO really is. Now, there's a lot of bad ways to do link building. I'm calling these bad. I know that they may be effective for some people. I even called them dumb here in my subhead. Now, I get emails like this daily. Some of them just say, please link to me. Those don't last very long. Some of them say, pay me and I'll link to you. I'm not a fan of that tactic either. It's cold email. How about this one? I write good article for you. This is a poor grammar Comic Sans email. I'm not even blurring out their names. This is true stories. I get these every day. Here's an even more common one. I have an infographic posted on your site and linked to me. It's just one cold email after another. You have a broken link. Fix it by linking to me. Does broken link building actually work? Maybe it does. I'm sure it does at some scale. However, what Neal and I are going to talk about is going to create a much more probable outcome for you than emails like this. I did take the liberty of fuzzing out this person's name. Hey, I found you have a broken link on your site, link back to me. So what we want to do is to build relationships with people that create content, the relationships that can lead to links, which lead to authority, which lead to rank, which lead to qualified traffic, which can lead to conversions, in other words, leads. We connected the dots already. So where are these people? Who are they? How do we find them? There are a lot of tools for that. GroupPy is one example. All you do is enter your topic, and a tool like GroupPy will show you, in this case, heating and cooling influencers, and it lists them out, and you can see the size of their audience and the places where they publish. Another tool that a lot of us use, we interviewed Steve Rayson on a previous episode of this webinar. And his tool, BuzzSumo, does a nice job of this as well, because you can put in any topic and it will show you not just influencers and the size of their followings, but also the authority of the websites they write for. A little bit of a shortcut, kind of a 1-2 punch. This is also a way to find journalists or brands or places that you might want to pitch to, the websites, the highly relevant websites that you might want to write for, or submit something to yourself, or network with one of the editors over there. Bottom line, social media is simply the world's greatest phone book. You can imagine almost anyone and find them, that super specific person, within minutes. You don't even need to use a paid tool. Here I am in LinkedIn asking myself this simple question: who are the editors who are working in human resource industries? Oh, there's 1,600 of them. Remember, editors, bloggers, journalists, academic researchers, podcasters. These are people who create links. I could just use a Twitter search tool. Follower Wonk is a free one, just to search Twitter for people that not just have that topic, maybe I'm trying to rank for a dog training phrase, but who have the word blogger maybe in their name. Next, we're going to connect by listening, subscribe, follow, add them to a list. Now you can watch that list all in one place. Hootsuite is a way to follow a specific social media list that you've created. Then we're going to engage, share their content, favorite, like their stuff, comment on their content. Neal's got a great example of how that can have huge upsides. Comments should be a big conversation. Connect with them. Now see, we're warming it up. No cold emails. Connect with them. Even write a recommendation. I've bolded my favorite tactics. Write the recommendation for them in LinkedIn after you've connected. If you're building a friendship here, after all, you could try to meet them at a live event. You could ask for an introduction. And if they're a podcaster, writing a review for them in iTunes will trigger huge reciprocity. They'll love you forever. If they're an author, writing a review on Amazon, I'm basically just talking about networking. And bottom line, if you're not making friends, you're doing it wrong. So that brings us back to our expert here, Neal, and I want to kind of segue now into the conversation. And see, Neal, not everyone is doing this, but right off the bat, how did that feel? Does that feel like a more sustainable tactic than the cold email?
Yeah, first of all, applause for that very, very quick, concise, awesome presentation, Andy.
Thank you.
I think that alone is awesome ROI from everybody attending today. So that's, and I agree with everything that you said, obviously. Here's the thing about influencer marketing. We're working with people, and it takes time to build relationships with people. So there are some, let's take the analogy of marriage. There's some people that get to know each other, and after 6 months, they get married. There's some that take 2 or 3 years of dating to get married. It's because we're people. We all want different things. We all have different needs, and every person's going to be different. So when you treat every influencer the same by sending a cold email, number one, you've already devalued them in their eyes, because it's clear that you've probably sent this email out to a bunch of other people. And number two, you don't have a relationship, yet you're asking for something extremely invaluable. And Andy, I mean, for those of us that work in marketing, we don't link, when we place that link in, we know that we're giving some Google juice to whoever that person is on the other end of that link. Mm-hmm. We don't do that lightly, right? We're not going to just get an email and all of a sudden, oh, I'm going to go back in and spend some time to change a link. So, it's funny because there are a lot of people that create these like rules. I don't know if there are people teaching this. I get it like on LinkedIn as well. Hey, you look at their branded headline. I help authors, I help speakers book, 10 new leads a day. And then they reach out to you on LinkedIn with that professional headline saying, hey, I saw we have a few mutual connections. I'm connected with a lot of speakers who'd like to help you. They connect with you, and then boom, like 5 hours later, they're doing the pitch. And it's immediately unconnect block. And it's almost like there's someone teaching just bad tactics that people buy into. And what you described as these cold emails, I think is the absolute worst tactic. Now, I have seen some case studies of people say, well, I sent out 1,000 of these and I got like 5 links. So, hey, it's a bad conversion rate, but hey, I got 5 links. So, but you know what? You made a bad impression with 995 other people that are never going to want to work with you. Because believe me, when I get something, I do my search through Gmail. It's like, oh, I see you contacted me a year ago or 2 years ago. I want to stay away from this person. So, it is relationship building. It is getting to know someone and actually having a personalized approach, because the value of what you get from them is huge. I mean, if you can get Well, we can talk about how huge that is, but just getting a link from an authoritative blog. I know that one of my blog posts that I got tons of traffic from Google really came because one blogger organically linked to it. And that blogger had a lot more, bigger audience than I did, and more Google authority. So, don't take this lightly. Instead of going for quantity, go for quality. And not every influencer is going to engage back with you. So when we look back at that 1,000 people contacted and I got 5 links, it's going to be the same when you reach out and try to build relationships with influencers, because they're busy people. And if they don't know you, they're not going to like, hey, thanks for the comment. They may not even follow you back, but it's a sale. And we talked about this the other day, Andy. You may want to, you're going to have a list. You're going to identify a group of people, and maybe 5, it may be 10, and maybe 25. Not everybody is going to want to engage back with you, and that's fine. But out of the 25, out of the 50, you'll pick the few that you'll be able to build a relationship with. And it has to be mutually beneficial, right? And that's why, for those of you that are my fans that are on this webinar, I'm writing a book on influencer marketing called The Business of Social. And one of the key chapters is the more influence you have, the easier it's going to be to work with influencers, because they see that it's going to be more mutually beneficial. It's like, I have 217,000 Twitter followers. So when someone says, hey, we'd love if you would submit a blog to us and we'll share it with our 20,000 Twitter followers. I'm like, wait, I have 10 times more Twitter. What is the value in me doing that from a relative scale, right? Although there might be value. So there's a few important concepts here, right? You want to building influence will help you yield more influence is one, but really it's about relationship building. And that's why I believe that, a lot of social media comes back to sort of PR. And Andy, we were talking, a lot of organizations, it's PR that's running the show for influencer marketing. There's a lot of corporate titles that don't say influencer marketing, but they say influencer relationships or influencer management, because it's people. They're influencer marketing tools. They have this term called IRM, or influencer relationship management, which is just like CRM, customer relationship management, which is Salesforce, right? So it very much is that same sort of thing as you're working with people. It's a sale. And I know I'm skipping ahead and covering a lot of what we plan to talk about, Andy,
this is
the whole what's in it for me, right? And if you cannot answer what is the benefit of that person taking the time out of their busy day to deal with you, and if they don't have any benefit of doing that, and I often will get those cold emails and I'll respond back, why? Just why question mark? And it's like, well, we thought this infographic would provide a great resource. It's like, so I'm going to go out of my way and invest my time to publish your infographic that's going to help promote you, and I'm just another commodity blog like all those other blogs. What really fascinates me, Andy, when I get these cold emails is all the other blogs they say that they've already been featured on. So all these blogs, in my eyes, have been devalued because they're accepting guest blog posts from anyone and everyone. And I think at the end of the day, that's going to hurt them with Google authority. But I'm going to stop on my rant because I hopefully you got a few takeaways, and hopefully this is going to generate some questions as well. But Andy, take it, not to make your life any harder, but I'll let you take it from here.
There's a lot of important things there. What we're talking about here, for everyone's sake, is the huge disadvantage and possible reputation risk of sending massive amounts of cold email. It's not that hey, there's something wrong with your site. Here's an idea for how to fix it. Like there's a broken link. That's not necessarily a bad thing to talk to a friend about. Or, hey, I've got an infographic that you might like to publish. It supports this other thing. Sure, if I know you, that could be a really good conversation. The problem is the lack of warmth in the outreach. Right? It's the cold email, especially LinkedIn spam, right? It's just despicable. Really quick, we had a question from Yolanda. Yolanda was asking, what is a good authority? What's a good range of credibility for a website, for an influencer to collaborate with? What's high or low in that scale of 1 to 100? As a general rule, and in Semrush, we'll be talking about domain score. As a general rule, I would just consider any website or domain that has a higher authority than yours or a higher domain score than yours to be good.
Exactly.
And that brings up, and that's actually what Neal said a second ago about relative levels of visibility. So of course, I'm going to share this with my following. I have 100 followers, you have 10,000 followers. There isn't really parity there. So being aware of that, if there is a very large gap between your relative level of visibility and fame and theirs, that just makes it even more important that you warm it up slow. There's amazing examples of influencer marketing where people reached out and were successful connecting with huge brands, big names, celebrities, legit pop culture, world stage celebrities. But you don't do that with a cold email. That just takes time. So it's the fame to speed ratio, right? The greater the gap, the slower you go, or else just expect to be ignored. And to another point you made, Neal, that I think is important. Everyone's got kind of a permanent record, because if I search my email for your name and you came up in there 18 months ago as someone who spammed me, that's not helping you out. Because so yeah, we should be sensitive, treat people like people, take it slow. But I'm not saying, you can't aim high or that the pitch won't work, but it's not going to work if it's cold.
Yeah, if I was to get a cold email saying, Neal, I'm an SEO expert, I'd love to guest blog on your site. I already did an analysis. The post that is driving the most traffic from Google for you, I've noticed that you have 2 404 links. I've already done some homework. These are high authority sites, higher authority than your site. And the blog owners of these sites tend to link more liberally to other sites. I highly recommend that you go. And by the way, one of these 2 sites is mine. That's someone who's done their homework, that actually has done something of value to me, where I'd say, what? I may actually do that because that's important to me, right? Because I'm getting a lot of traffic from that content. So, there are ways. At the end of the day, it comes down to personalization, which comes down to doing research, right? It's just like if you were going to try to, I use that marriage analogy, right? If you were going to ask someone out on a date, you would do a little bit of research as to what sort of food they might be interested in, when they might be available, are they interested in you or not? And it's really a great analogy and just something to remember, because you're not going to ask 100 people out for a date over the course of 24 hours. Most normal people wouldn't. So why would, business is no different. And influencers are really, really busy people, because if you're trying to send them an email, think of all the others before you that have already done that.
So many. You're getting so many. That inbox is filled. So they should recognize your name. Why? Because you're already connected. Because you've been commenting on their content. Because you've been sharing them already. Christian asks a good question. It's like, how effective are introductions from first level connections, such as LinkedIn? I think that can be very effective, but there again, to Neal's point just now, what kind of research did you do? How did you reach out? What did you suggest? Was it a creative idea? What is your pitch? If your first degree connection helped you by connecting you with someone, and your first contact was linked to me, that's ridiculous. On the other hand, if there's an event coming up in your town, I'm going to be there. I would love to meet with you 10 minutes early and, buy you a drink and show you what I'm working on. It will take very little of your time, and I know you're going to be there anyway. I mean, there are just ways you're trying to reduce the friction, as you would in any relationship, and be considerate in the ask, because, again, to Neal's other point, sales. It's not unlike sales, right? What is the R and the I in the ROI equation for this person that you're reaching out to? There has to the what's in it for me, the R, the return on that investment must be evident, and the I should be as low as possible. So I think that first degree connections can make great introductions, but be creative, be simple, be easy to work with, be specific, be concise. All of those things are going to make that just a much better point of contact.
Yeah, it does get back to that. What's in it for me? Why would they want to take their time and meet with you? So try to make it easy. Give them a reason. I'm interviewing other thought leaders in the space. Well, everybody else is doing that. Why would they want to invest now? Well, I am committing because I'm such a big fan. I'm going to put $500 of paid media behind this post after I publish it. Wow, that would be awesome. So just, and this gets into an interesting topic as do influencer relationships cost money, right? Because time is money. And if influencers have client work and they have a job and they're already getting money from brands, it's going to be hard to build a relationship organically that won't at some point that might not require some sort of compensation, right? It doesn't have to be money. It could be a gift card. It could be a donation. I mean, there's lots of different things. And I don't know if we want to go into that yet, Andy, because I see the timeline is getting filled with questions here. This is awesome.
Know. Let's take another.
And I think to the point, I mean, this is why I'm writing a book on the subject, because I really think it is one of the least properly understood concepts in marketing. I think it's
Mhm.
also the thing that a lot of people have mistaught, miseducated, which explains why we get all these bad cold emails. So Andy, take
Yeah.
it away.
Well, Kim's question is about, from an agency standpoint, how do you suggest approaching link building on behalf of a client? I'm going to give a quick combination strategy that could work really well. Look at the industry of the client, ask where there are information gaps or data gaps. Is there a statistic that you could create? In other words, create a piece of research that answers an important question in that industry, and then go big on creating an amazing piece of content that answers that question. When you publish this piece of research, include influencer quotes in the research. And when you reach out to them, say, yeah, I know you're an expert on this specific thing because I read 3 articles you wrote about it. Could you please send me 50 words in the next 2 weeks on this topic to include in my industry study? They're going to love to be quoted in a piece of original research. You showed that you care and you're listening by citing other things they've already created. And when you publish that super link-worthy piece that's 3,000 words long and is filled with original data, you don't have to worry about will influencers who create content ever see it, because they're in it. So create link-worthy content, as in original research, which builds citations, right? Links, and make it visible to other people by including them in the research. You see, the best people that are producing industry research are often including quotes from the people who are relevant right in there, especially when they're content creators. Boy, there's so many here. Here's a question from Kristen, a different Kristen. Marketing newbie here. Should we do this from our company account? And can we build, I'm gonna let you take this, Neal. Should we do this from a company account? And can we build relationships if more than one of us is running the account?
Yes, if you are trying to build influence from your company, it should be from your company account. But on the other hand, people relate to people. So when you
Yes.
reach out, it's always important to say, hey, I am so-and-so who is in charge of something, something at the company. I think, who you reach out from is not the most important thing. But yeah, I mean, if Ritz-Carlton Hotels was going to reach out to me, I don't expect to get, Angela Smith at Gmail. I would expect to get Angela Smith at ritzcarlton.com. So I think in some ways you want to make sure that you use the company brand. I think that should be the least of your worries. I would go about and start to, obviously the first part is really your strategy and then mapping out who these influencers are. But yeah, there's obviously different ways of doing it. If you are an influencer, and a lot of brands are actually hiring influencers to run these programs because they already have these personal relationships. So if you're a marketer that already has an incredible network and you have more influence than your company, then it's a different story. But if your company has more influence than you, then obviously you want to use the company, but make it personable, right? I mean, people connect with people, right? Even though whether you're B2B or B2C, B2B is people within companies connecting with people inside companies, right? So that personal touch when you write from a company is always going to help. But, Andy, I wanted to get back to that link building exercise. On the other hand, you can say, hey, we know you're an influencer. We'd love to get your advice on our product. We're going to offer you lifetime access for free.
Sure.
No strings attached. So there's a lot of different ways of doing this. And that's one of the things I'm writing in my book, is a chapter on just, all the different influencer marketing campaigns, all the different ways in which you can work with influencers if you think outside of the box. Definitely, writing getting data, writing a significant research paper is an awesome way of doing that. Say that you'll include them in it. You want to include a quote. These are, that content, including them in your content is an awesome tactic that works, and I think is not utilized nearly enough as it should be, right? But it really depends on your industry as well. So don't be afraid. I mean, if you can't offer an influencer lifetime access, this is another thing that bugs me, Andy, because I'm involved in social media tools. I'll get these companies saying, we'll give you 30 days free. It's like, well, I can sign up for a 30-day free trial. So I'm not being treated any differently. And then they give you access. It's like, well, it's been 90 days. We haven't seen a blog post from you. We're going to have to cut off your access. True story from a pretty well-known social media tool that I will never use again, nor will recommend again. So, at the end of the day, it's going to cost something, but giving away product is probably the easiest thing you can do. And not everybody's going to use it. Not everybody's going to say, great. But you know what? If an influencer will not take you up on that opportunity, they may never work with you anyway, because there's no interest in your product or service for whatever reason. So it's also a good way to test the waters.
It is. And after all, don't you want not just an influencer who's incentivized to promote your content, but someone or your product, but someone who's literally engaged with it, like a legitimate endorsement. I'm going to go a different direction with a hilarious story. You might like this. I heard this morning. I recently taught a class, and this woman in the class used to be a small town newscaster, TV news. And they'd done several stories on this outdoor sports thing and like hunting and turkey hunting. This is in a northern state here in the US, it's Wisconsin. So this turkey hunting farm wants her to cover them in the news. They sent her a sweater made out of turkey feathers and a vial of turkey urine. And she said, yes, absolutely. We're coming to your farm to meet you and cover your story. And it led to a placement. They got placed, right? Because it was not the typical outreach, right? It was not a cold email. It was something different, which is why I think it's so fun. Influencer marketing has a chance to be really creative. I think that so I can't speak for everyone, but my content over the years has become slightly more formulaic because I use analytics to see what's working and I dump the tactics that don't work and I write long form search optimized blog posts with contributor quotes and keyword focus and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I used to write crossword puzzle blog posts and like I wrote a poem one time. I wrote a poem about SEO. My content has gotten slightly less creative or big idea, but influencer marketing, yeah, why not do something else? Do I have it here? A friend of mine sent me an axe, like a hatchet, like an axe. He's a close friend now. When I got that, I'm like, I'm definitely calling this guy. He sent me an email that said, let's chop wood with this axe. I think it's a chance to be really creative. And that's one of the sad things about cold email is that it just misses that opportunity to do something different or unexpected or more generous or more fun. This is really a category where I think people should go back to some of the reasons why they started doing marketing, because they wanted to be weird and fun and creative and different.
Yeah.
So other examples, I guess, anything, Neal, about fun ways to do outreach or examples of how people have connected?
Well, you got to stand out, right? Because everybody's trying to influence influencers these days. So, I'll give you, getting back to the analogy of dating, I don't think I've ever told this story to anybody of when I was courting my wife. And we weren't even dating yet. We weren't even, going steady or whatever you want to call it. We didn't have a serious relationship, but we had gone out twice as part of these groups. And she worked at the local bank in Kyoto, Japan, where I was working at the time. So I went in to start a new account because she was in charge of new accounts there. And I wore a necktie that was like a heart necktie. It was all these hearts. It was actually, UNICEF used to do this Save the Children necktie with all these designs written by kids. And this is one of them. And it was all hearts. And I mean, she still talks about that necktie today. I mean, obviously, whether it can work against you as well. In my story, it worked for me, but it was a way to stand out and be memorable. And that's the key thing here. In marketing, we talk about the same thing, right? You got to stand out from all the noise. And this is just whether you deal with people and influencers, it's the same thing. You got to do something different. It can't be scripted. And, I don't know that turkey urine, that I would have just said, these people are crazy. I don't want to deal with them. So that could work against you as well. But you are memorable and you stuck out. And that's the important thing if you want to get someone's attention, because, just copying the script is not going to get you, you're not going to be able to meet the influencers you want to meet. You may meet lower level influencers that are just looking for business that'll take anything and everyone, that probably won't have nearly as much value. 10 of those people might not have as much value as working with one, more legitimate influencer, because there's always people that will do stuff because they're trying to work their way up the influencer totem pole, but they may not be truly influential to you.
Yeah. There's a question from Frederic about is influencer marketing relevant in the B2B context? So I'm a B2B marketer, so I find it very relevant. I used to get that question. Maybe Neal, you've heard. We get that question about like, we remember this before? Is content marketing relevant in B2B? Of course, definitely. Obviously, like years ago, people used to ask that about content marketing. I got the
opposite. Is content marketing relevant in B2C? I would get a lot.
Yeah, it's human to human, so it's relevant for anyone. Basically, influencer marketing is about finding people that have already built the audience that you'd like to connect with and borrowing that audience from them in a very sensitive, considerate way, or renting that audience in a paid context. Like Neal says, it's about being influential over the communities that you want to influence. So definitely relevant. I don't see any reason why B2B would be less powerful. In fact, I think some of the best examples I can think of are B2B. B2C influencer marketing to me is a little bit strange. It's a little bit more top of the funnel. It's a little bit more celebrity driven. I have this diagram. I'll show it someday on maybe a future webinar. The higher up in the funnel you want to influence, it may be more you're looking for like a celebrity. Farther down, it's kind of an influencer or someone in the niche. And at the very bottom, it might be someone, the influencer might be someone that you're already working with, like a customer that can create content with you in case study content. But definitely relevant for anyone trying to reach any audience. I think it's I don't make any real distinction in the value from one to the next.
Yeah, and this comes down to where I think marketers have been miseducated, because the fact that people continue to ask that question, right? Influencer marketing is not about sending someone some makeup that they can put on and post on Instagram and pay them $100 because they have 10,000 followers. Influencer marketing is about influence. Who yields influence in the community that you want to sell to, that you want to influence? So with B2B, it's going to be very, very different from B2C, right? From B2B, it might be a partner. It might be a reseller, a distributor. It might be an employee. It might be more of like a tech blogger. It might be a tech YouTuber. I mean, I don't know, right? Because B2B has a lot of different industries. But, it really get back to the basis and think, if we can influence these people to talk about our product, we're going to sell more. Who are those people? And it might be, like I said, it's going to be more on, we talk about employee advocacy and influencer, employee as influencer. It might lead more to those types of things. So it's going to be very different, and how you influence might be different as well. Because with B2C, it's the same thing. People want to make better informed purchasing decisions, but with B2B, it becomes organizational, right? Just influencing one person is not going to get you the deal for most large enterprises. You need to influence a lot of people. They need to have a lot of data. There's a whole buying journey where you need to influence them at different points along that time cycle. So it's a lot more complex, but obviously either way, the general concept applies. And that's where you really need to start thinking. In fact, I do social selling workshops as part of all the different trainings and speaking that I do. And one of the companies I work with is one of the largest insurance companies here in the States. So this is an example of B2C social selling. We normally think of social selling for B2B companies, but these are insurance agents that are trying to sell to high wealth individuals in their communities throughout North America. And when I was doing one of these, they kept talking about these centers of influence. And these people are not social media people. They're not marketers either. And I'm like, what do you mean these centers of influence? They go, well, if we want to try to sell insurance in the community, we want to connect with people that have influence in the community. Who are those people? Sometimes they're accountants, they're financial advisors. They could be, Chamber of Commerce people, whoever they are, right? Those are the people that if you can influence, you get access to more introductions and therefore more business. So it's the same concept. Everybody, let's dumb it down. And let's think holistically here, because it is applicable to governments, it's applicable to nonprofits, it's applicable everywhere. The concept, how it's applied is going to be slightly different, but if you can get the concept and think outside of the box creatively, as Andy, you were talking about, and bring some fun back into it, get those creative juices flowing again, I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I think there's something that I think about with any category. B2B is one that came up for me recently. There's let's say, suppose you sell marketing services to construction companies. Who's influential in that category? Well, there's a conference every year where all the marketers from construction companies get together. The programming director who books speakers for that conference is an influencer. And if I can make friends with that person, I've got a chance at getting my application submitted and being on a stage in front of everybody in my target audience and demonstrating expertise. The editor of Rock and Dirt magazine is an influencer. Executives of construction companies read Rock and Dirt magazine, and if I can make friends with that editor, I might be able to get included in an article or be able to pitch them a piece. So it's really just working backwards from that thing that you want, knowing that there's a friendship or a relationship in the middle to get you there. And then what are the creative ways you can connect with them? Something you said to me earlier was that the idea for the content itself could also be something you collaborate on. For example, if you reach out to an influencer, rather than have the whole packaged up idea in mind, it might be, hey, what do you think about a VIP event that gives people a certain experience? Or I think it's fun that the creative piece for the content, if you're collaborating on content, could be something that you brainstorm with the influencer about to make sure that they're engaged with it and more likely to be to jump into your plans.
Yeah, Andy, I wanted to comment on what you were just talking about, Rock and Dirt magazine. because this also illustrates a problem. And I am the biggest fan of technology and influencer marketing tools out there, but you can't rely on a tool to be able to help you find influencers in the construction industry marketers, right? It comes down beginning with common sense, like you just said. Where do people congregate? Who are the influencers? Because if you were to do a search in any influencer marketing tool for construction industry marketer, you're going to get vastly different results. So you need a combination. The technology is going to help validate influence in many instances. When you're not sure, it might help introduce you to new people, but you don't necessarily need the tool to begin with. To begin, this is the main subject there. But as far as working with influencers, I like the idea of a clean slate. So the problem that a lot of marketers have, and I see this a lot in B2C, is they treat influencers as if it was a traditional marketing campaign. So over the course of 30 days, we need 30 pieces of content. We need 30 Facebook posts. We need 60 Instagram stories, and each one has to be 3 frames. And I've actually seen this in a pitch to me as an influencer. It's basically a laundry list of deliverables that they need. And I have to mention this and mention that, use this hashtag, use that hashtag. And I'm thinking to myself, anybody who are following these rules are, number one, really, really good follow takers. But number two, I'm thinking, would a real influencer actually want to take part in something where they're very constrained as far as their creativity goes? And the other thing is, they know their audience better than the brand does. So why don't you have a discussion saying, you know what, our main KPI for this is driving traffic to this site, or driving foot traffic, or getting people to download an ebook or join the webinar. What do you think, based on your knowledge of the community, what do you think is the best way to do that? How do we work with you to best achieve it? And how do we make sure that you benefit from it as well? Oh, you want to be part of our webinar? Oh, you want us to, note somewhere that you'll be able to contact these people as well because you're a part of the webinar, and therefore you get to add to your list. That's fine, right? But you should, instead of just saying, we want you to do this, start with, hey, we know you're an influencer in the industry. We're a big player. We have to find a way to work together. How do you normally work with brands? Or is there any way in which we can help you? And maybe the timing's not right, but you begin the conversation after you do everything that we talked about earlier of sending social signals and everything. But keep it open, because everyone's going to be different, right? Someone wants you to take them to the Thai restaurant, some to the French restaurant. Instead of me saying, hey, let's go to TGIF, saying, hey, you want to go for dinner Friday night? What do you like? Right?
Yeah.
So it's the same concept, people, right?
So I have an infant and a toddler, and I try not to spend time away from home. So there's sometimes people say, Andy, will you come, give a presentation at this event? And by the way, we're going to take you out to dinner, and we're going to put you in a nice hotel. I'm like, that's just taking more of my time away from my family. The best way to pitch to me to be part of an event is to say, you can get in and out the same day. You can fly the red eye. We don't care. Come in that day. Like, you'll be fine. Like, I'm very likely to accept an invitation to present if I know I can get in and out fast. Without knowing that, they're asking me, actually, the thing that they're making the incentive, what they think is an incentive, to me is a cost. I get to, I don't need to have dinner. A fancy dinner is not on my list of things I want to do. I want to get home. So,
and I get a lot of these for like local networking parties. They're always on like Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday nights. It's like, dude, I have a family. Those are family nights. So, if you're single, you don't have a family, that's awesome. But you got to be conscious. I'd much rather do a weekday lunch networking, right? Where it doesn't affect my family. And my kids are 13-year-old and 11 years old, but I treat them as if they're infants and toddlers. I just love every minute together, right? So I hear you 100%. Understand, the more you get to know, the more you do research and get to know the influencer, the more you'll be able to offer something that's very cool. Hey, we're offering free daycare. And by the way, I'm bringing my kids as well. They can play together. Do you want to hang out for a bit? So just,
perfect alignment.
Exactly.
There was one year at a conference, a big national conference with tons of speakers, and there was this company that wanted to do an event, but all the normal times for events were booked, and it's hard to get all the speakers to show up to an event. So they reached out, and we brainstormed and came up with this idea together that they could just get a fancy car that takes people from one party to the other party. And how many speakers would like a ride? Everybody at the conference sort of had to walk across this distance, like hot, it's summertime and sweaty evening. And they're like, no, we're going to get a limo, and we're going to have 15 of you, and come on in. We're going to serve you a glass of champagne and take you from here to there. 100% of people said yes to that.
Yeah.
And what happened? When we all got out, we were all in a great mood. They took a giant picture of these, 15 marketing speakers. Everyone instantly reshared it. It cost them very little. It cost nobody any time. So one thing to keep in mind is that these people that you're reaching out to, not only do they get a lot of outreach, but one of their resource shortages is just time. So any idea that you have that keeps their investment down makes you more likely to get accepted, even if it's an email, right? And I still do lots of email outreach for people. Here's another brief story. Manager Tools, it's like one of the #1, it's like top business podcasts. Amazing podcast, Manager Tools, like 1 million downloads a month. That guy is an expert, and he was talking about this topic that would have fit perfectly into my article. Oh, I'd love to get a quote from him. I reached out on LinkedIn, no response. I filled out his contact form on his website. This is a long shot now, right? I didn't warm it up at all because I have no way to really reach the guy. He's truly famous. So what his response, my email said, all I need is 50 words. On this topic specifically, I love what you say and you're perfect for this piece. Would you mind just taking a minute and sending me 50 words for me to include as a contributor quote? Anything in the next 2 weeks would be great. I gave him a time frame. I was sensitive to the topic, knowing he doesn't have to research. Basically, I could almost have written it for him, right? And I gave him a length. That contributor quote outreach thing, if you're very specific in what you're looking for and you make it a very low work proposition, he responded, I got a quote. That guy, Mark from Manager Tools, is on my blog. What an honor. I know, awesome. It's a great moment, isn't it? The little victories, it's fun. I'm very proud of that.
My pet peeve about those is I always get these, right? Hey, can we get a quote from you? And the one thing that they never say is, we will offer a link back to your website of choice together with your quote. If you really want people to, that's the only thing that I ask for when I do these things. Are you going to link? And I always have to ask, hey, are you going to link back to my website if I give you a quote? So that's just something to think about when you do those outreach. That, once again, I know you're SEMrush fans, you're link builders. You know the value of a link. Isn't it worth the cost of a link to get these people? And for a lot of people that are trying to build links to their site as well, that may be enough. That may be enough value, right? So just something to think about. Don't hide it. Bring it out in the open. Bring out everything that you want to do for them in the open, and that's going to help your pitch.
Yeah, and that's especially relevant to those who are like you and I. We're in the marketing world and we understand search, and so it becomes relevant to us if someone reaches out and says, "Yeah, would you mind contributing to this thing?" What I say when I reach out, and I don't do the traditional mega roundup. In marketing, it's kind of overused. I think there's some controversy around the giant roundup with 650 people. By the way, isn't the link value on a post with 600 people is basically zero, right? Because the value of an outgoing link is divided by the number of outgoing links, right? So if I'm one of 600 links on your page, that doesn't really pass much value to me. I think people forget about that, and the way authority is finite. In any case, when I reach out to people and I say, would you mind contributing a quote? I would be thrilled to include you in this section down here. I'm only doing like 3 or 5 at most. They're within a bigger article. The post is keyword focused, so they're probably going to get a lot of visibility from it. A lot of these things rank. And I put their face and their name and their company, and I offer, like, I will link to any piece of content that you feel is relevant. Why wouldn't I?
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's not, you're giving, if they understand search, they may see that as a bigger benefit because it's not a mega roundup, first of all. And secondly, it may be linking to something deeper, more specific, improving their backlink profile. It's not just another homepage link.
Yeah, and hey, we'd love to do a Skype interview with you for our blog. How about, hey, we have a professional videographer. We'll go out to your office and we'll do, and you know what? We'll record 5 minutes of video on anything you want for free that you can repurpose for your social media. So just little things that you can do. And I say that companies have access to resources that people may not, that influencers, I mean, it depends on what type of influencer they are. Think of the things that you can provide as a company because you have an infrastructure that the influencers may not have access to. And you're going to get lots of ideas as to what you can offer them that's going to have value in their eyes.
Neal, let me ask you about this. Is this, how often do you see this? You contribute to something, and then that brand wants you to collaborate on the promotion of it, of course. And then you get an email that says it's live, go share it. Is or are you seeing people do a little more with that? Like it's live. Here's a click to tweet. Here's a custom image I made for you. You know, here's how you can upvote it somewhere. How important is the post? We're not talking about paid here mostly. This is organic, collaborative content marketing influencer work.
Right,
But
right.
what are your tips or thoughts about the post content launch follow up? Please promote communication.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think, and this is more specific to this sort of content collaboration. I call it a content-centric influencer marketing program, which is what a lot of B2B companies do, obviously, but obviously not limited to be a B2B. And I find that influencers are busy people. So when you reach out to them, even for like, it's just a 200-word quote, you know, oh, it'll just take a minute. Well, it doesn't take a minute because that influencer, their thought leadership, their branding, their reputation's on the line. They're not going to give you, for lack of better English description, a half-ass answer to what your question is, right? They're going to put some thought into it, right? And then there's going to be a little bit of back and forth. So that 200-word little quote may take some influencers 30 minutes, an hour. And if an hour of time is worth $250, that's a considerable amount of investment. So what I see some marketers do wrong is, I know they want the influencer to share it. Look, if they're part of it and hey, it was just published and you send them a link, they will share it in their own way. There's probably already an image up on the site that they can use if they wanted to share an image. So I think a lot of marketers go overboard saying, hey, you know, these influencers have already invested time into the content creation. Now you want them to like invest more time. I mean, they will share it when the timing is right for them. So I wouldn't go overboard. I mean, I'd obviously say, hey, thank you so much for your contribution. We ended up getting influencers A, B, C, D to also participate. I think you're really going to like it. Here's the link. Go check it out. Feel free to share with your network if you think it's worthy of your brand, right?
Yeah.
I would leave it at that. I don't think you need to have, you know, but you know, I work in social media, so I don't need a click the tweet link to figure out how to quickly share it on Twitter, right? If these people are heavy social media users, which most influencers are because they're content creators, I don't think you need to go that extra mile. Now, if you were to say, you know, getting back to that question about how many people to invite, you know, if it was like the top 10 influencers in construction industry marketing, right? And it was only like 10 people, so it was sort of an honor to be interviewed, and you wanted to make a specific image for that person with their quote, right, that they can share, that you've personalized, then it might have some value, right? But if you're just one of 65 people, right, and you just say you just have the standard image, I don't think it has much value. So yeah, that's my take.
That reminds me of a fun format that I was part of once. It was like they asked 10 people to all recommend their favorite book. And each person, of course, was likely to share the post because they were one of the 10 who got to make the suggestion. But also the authors of the 10 books were immediately jumping in and sharing the thing, and because they were recommended on this post. So it was like a twofer, right? It's like quite clever.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But sharing, I want to ask you this fun question, and we'll give examples here. But as we get down to the time, any attendees? We have Neal with us. He's at our service here, happy to share anything. So this is a good time to ask questions. The end of this conversation is often more about the audience questions. So jump in with anything at all. I know I have more. Sharing. A celebrity shares your stuff. How much does that really move the needle? Is this a myth? Does it really matter? I mean, is it just an ego thing or a vanity thing? If you just like that famous person shared me on Twitter. I mean, what is that? I'll give an example. Several of the like emotional peaks in my career as a marketer were when the official Google Analytics account shared articles I had written. Oh my God, call my mom, print this tweet, put it on the refrigerator. Like, I'm so proud and so happy that Google shared me. But really, what is the benefit of that? Who really cares? What's the upside? So you go look at analytics, and what was the spike during that hour? 30 visits, 50 visits. Is it really how much does it matter, a tweet from a celebrity? Is that overly weighted in the minds of influencer marketers?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question. So I think there's two different ways to look at it. Number one, the immediate impact can be quite limiting. I was actually on Japanese national TV. I was featured on a pretty famous show that most Japanese people know of. And when I posted that on Instagram, maybe I got like 3 new followers. Like, hey, I was on TV, right? I have had celebrities of various sorts. When a famous musician, tweeted out because we were working together, and sort of he wished me a happy birthday over Twitter, and he had like 1 million followers. I got a few new followers, like his passionate fan base. There were a few of them that ended up following me and wishing me a happy birthday. So, it can be mixed. On the other hand, and Andy, I mentioned the story, I've had Guy Kawasaki share some of my content. This was a few years ago, and it led to like hundreds of new visits in my Google Analytics. So it really can be mixed. I think it comes down to, the platform, the relevance of that content to the influencers community. There's really funny stories in influencer marketing of, for instance, Instagrammers, like female bodybuilders, right? So these brands that want to sell to females that want to do bodybuilding reach out to female bodybuilders saying, well, you have 1 million followers, will you share our stuff? Well, 999,000 of those 1 million followers are men, not women, right? So it's all about the relevance of the audience, right? And a lot of people mistake that. So there's a lot of different factors, but here's the thing, Andy, right? I'm going to do a little storytelling here because I do a lot of binge watching. I lived in Japan for 15 years, so I missed out on a lot of popular American culture. So I'm always trying to get, into it. So I finally watched Band of Brothers and The Pacific. And for any of you that know, there were HBO miniseries, World War II documentaries that are just brilliant movies. And whether it was fighting in the Pacific or fighting in Europe, the one phrase that stood out was keep moving, keep moving. If you stand still, you're going to get killed because they know where you are. You have to keep moving. You got to find cover. And when they start firing there, you got to find other cover. But the topic of keep moving really caught on to me because it's the same with marketing. Marketing in many ways is a war, right? The landscape is moving. We want to try to get to our customer. We want them to hear us. And we always have to be pivoting, and especially if you're in social media, you know that you're always pivoting because the algorithms are always changing. As a marketer, you have to pivot and you have to keep moving as well. So the tactics that worked 10 years ago, simply, they may work today, but they're going to be a lot less effective, a lot more effective because it's always a changing landscape. You always have new channels of communication. You always have new things that people are looking at. So, when you think about all the different ways in which you can engage with people and get them to find you, obviously, you have digital media, you can do ads, you can do SEO. But when you think about it, right, influencers come up as one of these things that you can be doing that should be mainstream. So, when a celebrity tweets you out, how much value does it have? I don't know. But it's one other thing that you should be working towards because you cannot pay to have you might be able to pay to have a celebrity tweet you. But it's obviously going to cost a lot of money, right? You can try to advertise in social networks, but it's an advertisement. And people know it's an advertisement, and people trust advertisements a little bit differently than they trust native content. So, at the end of the day, and this is the big picture when we talk about influencer marketing from a social media perspective, is the algorithms favor people. They always will favor people. Right. You can get listed. You mentioned social media is one big phone book. I use the phone book analogy a little bit differently because it's free to get listed in the phone book, but if you want to get a full page display ad, you got to pay for it. So if you want to be featured in the news feed as a business, you're going to have to pay for it, and you're going to have to pay more for it. So as a business, if you want to be found in social media and you want to stick out, you have to work with people. It could be your employees, it might be other people, but being found in social media is either going to be paid media or it's going to be people media. And that's the main message here. So you need to start some sort of influencer program, starting with your own fans, starting with your own followers, your own customers, your own employees, and try to leverage that, maybe beginning with employee advocacy and celebrating the employee as influencer. It has to become part of your mix because organic social is dying if it's not already dead. And you maybe say, well, we still get lots of impressions on Instagram. Well, those days are going to come to an end too because Facebook owns Instagram, obviously. So, there's no free lunch. And organic social will go more and more towards zero over time. So that's really why, how effective is influencer marketing? It's definitely more effective than organic social because you're working with people than with brands. So that's one of the main messages I want to make sure that you get after this 1 hour webinar we've been doing. I know we're sort of running out of time. We've had a whole bunch of other questions come in. So
this is great. Well, you're hammering home that point about the humanity of it, the fact that it's people, the fact that it's your audience and who really affects your audience. I love the female bodybuilder example. The creativity of the outreach. I know I'm going to find examples of that. Scott asked about budget. Now, I want to say first that there's different ways to spend money on influencer marketing. There are tools that cost something. There's PR firms that will help you with this. There are agents that you can pay to access their book of influencers, right? There's like Isaiah and this whole group of, one example that I saw on their site was like the most influential pets. These are influential animals. And obviously there's an agent for each of those animals. You're not talking directly to the hedgehog. And then there's the HR costs for your company. But probably Scott is asking about the out-of-pocket expense, the incentive, the paid incentive to the influencer to engage with them, which, Neal, we know ranges hugely, right? Like there are bloggers who, in exchange for a free product, will share and promote. And there are people who literally it's $20,000 per Instagram post. On average, I think that the stats show 63% of influencer marketing budgets are increasing, and that a lot of the money is going to like the PR firm to manage the campaign. It sounds like I think only like 30% of all influencer marketing budgets are the incentive to the influencer, something like this. Anyway, well, how would you answer that? Like, how much does it cost?
Well, time is money. So the fact of the matter is, what I actually started my career in finance and accounting. So there is your out-of-pocket cost that you're going to pay someone, but there's also the time is money cost, your own time of having to do this. And there's also the opportunity cost of if you're not doing this, what potential are you missing out on because you might be doing something that is a lot less effective. So it's going to be different. If, and I ran this, I see both sides of the picture because I have an agency and we do influencer marketing campaigns as well. And I reached out to 100 influencers and I can tell you what they asked for in terms of compensation was very, very different. Some, very few were willing to do it for free, but some were. Most at least wanted product. Some wanted 2 products, one that they could actually use for a giveaway, which would help them build their list. Some wanted money on top of that. Some wanted 3 products and more money. Some wanted an exorbitant amount of money. Some actually on their contact me page on their blog actually said how much money every type of engagement was. It was like a price list, Twitter party, blog, giveaway.
And those were like hundreds to thousands?
Some went into the thousands.
Okay.
With the democratization of influence, it's also sort of brought down the price, I believe, for a lot of influencers because there's a lot more influencers out there and there's a lot more brands working with micro influencers. So it's sort of a weird paradigm that we're in right now. But I would, if just for fun, right, type in influencer marketplace and just go to one of these and you could call Isaiah an influencer marketplace, but go to one of these influencer marketplaces and see how much people charge for an Instagram post, for a blog post. I had this conversation, so I'm actually a member of some of these as well. Part of it's research for my book. Part of it is, hey, can I monetize my influence, right? Classic thing. This company, they were teeth whitening company, right? And platform where you can like do free pitches between you and the brand. And they say, we'd love to work with you. Please let us know. We know that you have such and such Instagram follow. I have like 15,000 Instagram followers. We want to work with you on Instagram. So it's like, I don't really talk a lot about teeth whitening, but I just had surgery on my gum. It's a long story why, but I'm sort of cognizant about my teeth these days. So, I'm more than happy to talk about, teeth health and teeth whitening and why not, right? And so I pitched them back, hey, this is what I would charge. And immediately they responded back saying, well, we'll just give you free product. And immediately I said, well, I'm not interested in just getting product. That's an example, right? So it's going to be a little bit of back and forth. I had other influencers saying, you know what? I normally charge $400 for this blog post, but because your product has a lot of value and I personally want one of your equipment, whatever it is, I'm going to only charge you $100. These are people. Often they're small business owners, right? And that's where there's no real set price. A lot of it comes down to emotion, comes down to relationship, comes down to relevance. So the question, how much should I budget? How much should you budget for SEO? How much should you budget for a pay-per-click campaign? It's less about, how much you should budget and more about what is your marketing budget? How much are you willing to spend on marketing? How much of that are you going to appropriate for this new type of influencer program, which I believe is not a campaign, but a community, and therefore it's something long-term you do, just like link building, right? Or like.
Right. It's a long-term plan. So we have just a minute left. Scott asked a question about salaries for social media marketers, SEOs, SEMs, IT. Scott, this is probably something that you'll find online better than asking us, because it's going to be dependent upon the size of the industry and the location that you're in. These things vary wildly. If you search for marketer job description, I did write a post that summarizes a lot of the data from payscale.com and glassdoor.com, which have huge data sets on that topic. But briefly, just as we close, I love this last question. Heart and Sleep Clinics of America. Who would be good influencers to reach out to for a cardiologist's office? I'm going to throw out some ideas for you. Suppose you wanted to do an event live in your space that would make you more visible to the people nearby. You might find one person who's an expert at nutrition, who's going to give a short presentation and serve healthy hors d'oeuvres. And you're going to use Facebook to target all the people who are close by, who meet certain demographic criteria, and have them come in. And that influencer would be the subject matter expert, the SME, who's a nutritionist. Another might be to reach out to the American Heart Association, because you want to get a quote from them for a piece of research that you're publishing. And you know that adding their name, their face, their logo to something on your site is going to add a lot of credibility. That'd be an influencer to find someone who's doing research with the American Heart Association. That would give your site more social proof. So you can imagine how the influencer is part of a program that fits in other ways to make you more relevant, maybe locally, to make you more relevant to a broader audience, to lend credibility to you through content, or to connect you to an audience that they've already been working with. There's a lot of different ways that you could do it. The question isn't just about who's the influencer, but what is the format? What's the topic? How's it promoted? How do these things work together to increase your visibility? A broader question and a dash of creativity might lead to some fun brainstorm sessions on your team.
And who's your target? You know, my kids play club soccer. So are you targeting, do you want to do a free stress test for club soccer kids between 11 and 16, knowing that their parents are in their 40s and 50s? So there's so many, it's marketing 101, right? Do you want to reach out to like the pharmaceutical companies or to the medical device manufacturers that may have education programs they can work together with you on as well? So it's really, when I was in college, I was originally an art history major, right? So it's really, you're an artist. You have all these different colors on your palette that you can work with. And I think, Andy, you gave a great example of how you can bring all these different elements together in different ways. But it comes down to having the marketing mindset and figuring out where these influencers fit in the general scheme. Because, social media is not fit in a silo. Influencers do not fit in a silo. There's going to be a social media piece. There might be, events are great ways to work with influencers, right? And to bring people together and to yield influence over communities. So it all has to work together. But it starts with really understanding your target audience, right? And what type of people may influence them? What type of people might they be interested in the opinion of? And I thought the example of the nutritionist was awesome. I work with a major vitamin company, and they started a blog with a nutritionist, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. It builds authority, great content, what have you. So I think that is that's a great way to end the webinar. I mean, we could keep talking for another hour. Maybe we'll have to do that.
I could talk to you all day. It's a more creative category than a lot of parts of marketing. In my mind, it seems to be. There's so many fun ideas. So we'll have to leave it there. Thanks everyone for joining. Keep your eye out. These are all recorded, of course, and you come back and watch the recording later. If you know anybody who would like this, please share it with them. We also are now posting transcripts, which are reformatted and scannable into kind of a long format text piece, which you can come back and just jump back in. If we said something that you want to come back to and don't want to watch the whole video, you'll find it there. Thanks again. The next one will be coming up in about a month or so. We'll be posting that shortly. Again, Semrush, huge thanks. And Neal, let's do this again sometime.
Thank you, my friend. It was awesome.